We're here. Hey, welcome, guys. Good to see you.
Hey. We can't see you, mate. I know this is a high-tech show, but well, we can't see your beautiful face, and because it's probably Julio at it again, because you notice in the intro we're wearing T-shirts, and he's got the formal shirt on, always looking good, but we can't actually see Toothpicks Curry. Where are you?
I'm here, mate. I'm here in Studio 2, here at 98.9 Northwest FM. It's great to
photo, mate. We can't see you
here. If you're wondering what's going on, I've gone blank. Well, actually, I've gone some sort of figure there, but we just got our tech guy trying to work that out. But we've got the Paul Mark and the Tech Guy show. It's a discussion between three blokes in a podcast form, radio show. That's right, talking everything community sports, current and controversial news, and of course technical, which we're looking forward to tonight. Hey, Marcus and Mr. Julio yourself, great to have you. I am in disguise. I'm out of here at Studio 2. It's been a sensational week so far. How's your week been out to our listeners out there in 98.9 land? Let me tell you, the car park is full here at Hadfield. I'm telling you, it is absolutely chock-a-block. So don't come on down and be the audience here. So you can jump on to our Facebook page. But now, listen, Mark, we've got you're our co-host, right? You are the legend. You're part of the team here. Guess what's going on in the Facebook world, mate? Guess what? How many followers we have on the Paul Mark and Tech Guy Facebook page?
Well,
let me tell you, brother.
We all had last week. We're a very popular show, actually. I don't think our numbers on Facebook represent how popular we are out there in media land, because we are going on live on radio. We're going on YouTube. We're going on about 3 Facebook pages. And all Julio's mates are watching. So, and Julio's connected around the world. So we've got a worldwide audience watching us.
That's right.
This is fantastic.
Exactly, mate. Well, let me tell you, because it's great.
Well, he's gone, which is we don't need Paul tonight, do we, Julio? We've just got
yes. Yeah, it sounds like he wants
guy, and we have always tech issues on the show. I don't know what that's all about, Julio. How would you explain that to our listeners?
Oh, it's just one of the things that happens here all the time, I think, just come in and out.
I think it's your subtle way of emphasizing tech.
That's it.
Having tech that doesn't work makes you focus on the tech, you know?
That's right.
Is that your little strategy?
I'm trying my hardest just to make sure that everything does not work properly. So I'm keeping myself employed as much as possible. So, yeah. But hopefully he'll come back on. I've got a funny feeling that he needs to reset his computer or restart his computer.
All right. Well, we've got the listeners. The house is packed with listeners. We've actually got Patrick Lawrence, the CEO of First Step, joining us tonight. We're talking all things mental health. Be very interesting to find a bit about the First Step program. It's a great little medical clinic down there in St Kilda. So we will find him, and we'll try and find Paul at some point. He's out there in cyberspace. We've got a little footy show segment we normally have, Julio, so I'm not looking forward to that, because we're going to have to talk about how the Bombers got beaten. I've got the rant tonight, and I've got lots to rant about tonight. You've got your tech part. Just while we're starting, and we wanted to get this off, I didn't want to mention this on air to you, Julio, but I feel I have to. You committed yourself to be my coach, okay?
Yes.
Get me up, Larapinda. Since you've been my coach, I've put on weight. I can't walk up a hill. My back's killing me, and I haven't seen you. You're a total disaster as a coach. I mean,
I'm just trying to work. Well, I'm trying to work out one. Well, I've actually been a bit. I ended up with a second bout of some sort of flu, or I don't know what it was, but it got me down for quite some time, about a week and a half. So I missed out that opportunity. But the second opportunity for me was actually getting the resolve. Are you actually going for healthy, or just your normal meal, your normal daily meal? So it just depends which one you're going for.
Well, without a coach, it's very tempting to go for the second slide. And can you put that up again, mate? I haven't seen that sort of food around before ever. Mate, that does look interesting. Where do you get that stuff from?
Oh, it's called either health food, or you get it directly from the supermarket, as you do not go down the middle aisle, stay on the outside edges of the supermarket, and you'll find all these great healthy food.
As my coach, you should come shopping with me, help me select my food. And can you just commit publicly, are you coming on a walk with us this weekend or not?
I can definitely say I am coming this week,
Okay.
yes.
Well, because next week on the radio, I'll get you to do a bit of a summary for our listeners about whether you think I'm going to be able to do the Larapinda on the 24th of July. So it's not very far away. I'm sure our listeners are going to support me. I'm going to put a support me page on our Facebook pages and my Facebook page. So I need your support. I need some financial support. That will encourage me. I need Julio to actually take some responsibility as a coach. And here we are. We've got our guest. We've got Patrick Lawrence, the CEO of First Step. And
Mark, I've been supporting you, buddy. I'm a number one in your cheer squad.
Yeah. I'm gonna hear from you tonight, mate, because I do want some tips a bit later from you, and we're going to talk about something you achieved, which will mean I won't ever be able to get to your heights, but I do want some tips off you later, because to be publicly honest, my coach Julio has let me down, completely let me down. So I do need you to give me a bit of help. And we've lost Paul, though. He's meant to be in the studio. Who knows where he is?
Patrick, in any way I can.
Patrick, it's great to have you here, mate. And so you might just want to quickly introduce yourself. I've told everyone that you are the CEO of an amazing service down there in security called First Step. But just tell us a bit about yourself, and because you've actually got a few strings to your bow.
Well, this is true. Yeah, I mean, we'll probably talk a little bit about First Step and what we do down there. So if you want me to sort of skip that for the moment, what can I say about myself? I'm a father of 5, which is great fun. They're 18, 16, 15, 12, and 9, a girl followed by 4 boys.
Sorry, just on that. I mean, not many people have got 5 kids. Was that sort of planned? I mean, or was it just sort of cold winter? Or I mean, what happened?
I like to say, I mean, how many people have told me the old joke about, can't you afford a television, that kind of thing. I was an only child for 20 years. I now have a half brother, a different mum. We're very, very close, though. He lives in Basel, Switzerland. He's an opera singer. But I grew up as an only child. So I like to remind my parents they got a very good return on their investment. In fact, 500% return on their investment, 1 child and 5 grandchildren. I think Rachel and I were probably always going to, if we were lucky enough, we're always going to have 2 or 3. And we just sort of, I don't know, we liked babies. They have now all grown up. They're not babies anymore.
I actually know now why sometimes with your budgeting there at First Step doesn't always add up. You're going for 2 or 3, end up at 5. I mean, that's good if you're talking about profits, going for $2,000 or $3,000 profit, end up at $5,000 profit. But I mean, it doesn't give us a lot of confidence about your, your maths, mate.
Well, sometimes you just have to go with your gut and make it work down the track. So that's more or less what we did. So that does keep me, pretty busy, and they're all musical and play sport and do all that kind of stuff. My background is actually as a classical pianist. All 3 of my parents, if you count my stepmom, are professional musicians or were professional musicians. And I had a first career as a classical pianist. I studied in the States, worked in Vienna, Austria, and various different places. And then I came back to Melbourne and felt that I hope Melbourne had everything I needed in life, because I did sort of want to be close to my folks if I was going to have a family. And I was staying with my then girlfriend, who is now my wife and the mother of those 5 children. Her name is Rachel. She's wonderful. And there was an article in the local Leader newspaper about this small medical clinic. It had only opened up recently. They were doing some fairly radical treatments and trying to support people who were using heroin and wanted to stop using heroin. And they needed volunteers, and there were not necessarily any skills required for those volunteers because they already had doctors and nurses and everything. And so I wandered down to 42 Carlisle Street. 22 years later, I'm still there. So I stayed there as a volunteer for a while. Then I became a volunteer coordinator, and every 2 weeks, this check, well, a certain amount of money would arrive in my bank account, which was very unusual. As a musician, I'd never experienced that before. That was nice. And then I found that my sort of youthful passion around social justice and racial inequality and the things that had got me all fired up in my teens, and Martin Luther King and Public Enemy, all kind of, gelled there. And I found a place where I really felt like I belonged. For 10 years, I was only a day a week at First Step, and I was also working at the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre 3 days a week. So it's not like I've been full-time at First Step all that time. I have moved around a bit. But that's kind of me. So I've been the CEO, I think.
I didn't realise you actually did 4 days a week work for 10 years. Well, what did you do on the 5th day? Was it just playing the piano and looking after the 10 kids and all that?
Yes, both those things. So my wife's worked, apart from a couple of months after each baby, she's been doing different amounts of work. That was one of her work days, and that's when I try and squeeze some practice in. I still perform a little bit with a wonderful soprano friend, Antoinette Halloran, who lives out here in the West in Yarraville. I'm in Altona North, and we still do.
She's a great singer. And Chris has come on. He's wanting to know whether you actually teach piano. So it's
thanks for the question, Chris. I don't. My wife does, though. She teaches at 2 schools in Melbourne. I actually only taught piano quite briefly. I found that the patience required is extraordinary. Like I teach the kids who wanted to practice. I teach them for free, but you'd have to pay me double for the kids that never want to do any practice. It's really not about their talent at all. It's just, do they practice? Because there you are for the half-hour lesson. You give them a bunch of tips and they go away and nothing's changed because they haven't touched the piano in an intro.
Well, you're a muso, mate. You'd be pretty impressed that we've got a pianist online tonight as one of our special guests.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I was hoping he might have the keys in front of him. He could just do something really quick for us. Jeez.
Well, I don't know if it's going to work on the radio, but there is a piano behind me.
Oh, look at that. Jeez. Wow.
I don't know what the sound would be like, but we could give it a go.
Give it a go. Why not?
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's do
it. Live music on the show.
That's it.
Love it.
Okay. I'll play a few seconds, and you can tell me if the sound is any good. It might be absolutely terrible.
Okay, this is live on 98.9 Northwest FM. We've got an international pianist performing on the Paul, Mark, and the Tech Guy show.
Go for
it. Debussy's Clair de Lune. That's not a good start. I'm freaked out by this particular situation. I'm looking over my head. I'm going to jump forward a bit.
You go, Chris.
Well done.
Did that work?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
awesome.
Chris, if you get some lessons off Patrick, you'll be playing that after a couple of weeks.
That's it.
That's right.
Fantastic. So, so Patrick, you're a pianist, and then you're a CEO of a not-for-profit, a health centre. Just tell us a bit about who visits your health centre. What are some of the issues? What are you finding? I mean, it's been a pandemic and now post-pandemic. Just give us a bit of an overview of what's going on and what do you see the need, and what are people facing out there?
Yeah, well, where to start? I might start with 2 truths. I do like to talk about this a little bit. It's a very popular notion. You'll hear our Premier and mental health advocates around the place rightly say that mental illness or mental distress can happen to anyone, and that a substance use issue, or what we might call an addiction, can happen to anyone as well. And that is absolutely true. That's truth number 1. But like most of the world's great truths, the opposite is also true. and that is that there are very clear predictors of chronic mental illness and chronic substance use, most of which relate to poverty. So at First Step, we work with a lot of people who grew up in out-of-home care, a lot of people whose families have been in intergenerational poverty, a lot of early school leavers. There might even be... can I talk about some pretty serious topics? Can we assume that there are no kids on the line here? Is that maybe a little bit of a warning that maybe just for the next 5 minutes, this conversation may not be appropriate for, I'd say, people under the age of maybe 16? Is that all right? Can I just take over and do that, Paul? In the nod? Sure. Yeah, okay. Yep. So you can come back in a couple of minutes, folks. So a lot of the people we work with suffered terribly in their childhood. There was a lot of abuse and neglect, often sexual abuse, and even pre-teen injecting drug use, if you can get your head around that. And early school leaving, unemployment, really challenging lives. And what we find is that by the time someone in that position, really reaches out for support with their substance use or their mental illness, it's usually been an issue for a good 20 years. Interestingly enough, that's almost exactly the same amount of time as people usually go before talking about sexual abuse generally. People take about 20 years before they ever tell anyone. This is a sort of well-documented fact. So we work with people, usually they come to us in their 30s or 40s, and we find that there are several aspects of their life where they need support. But the traditional mental health, drug and alcohol and health systems in our society aren't designed to help people on several different fronts. You go and see a mental health clinician if you've got mental health issues. You go and see someone around your addiction, that's separate, and they may not work with you if your mental health is too bad, and vice versa. And general practice is over somewhere else. So what we specialise in, we like to say that we can help people with every aspect of their life in which they need support from one team in one place and for free. Now, every aspect may not be absolutely entirely true, but I'll give you an example. Well, I'll tell you the professions we have in the building. We have GPs, so doctors who specialise in addiction medicine, but also do general medicine. Registered nurses, mental health nurses, nurse practitioners that are like doctors, almost as qualified. We've got psychologists, psychiatrists, psychosocial workers. We have a fully fledged community health centre. So we have lawyers. And if people are using illicit substances, very likely that at some point in their life, they might need some legal support to help them get out of the cycle of relapse and recidivism. So when someone comes to First Step, they'll probably find over time, they're probably going to have a team of maybe 3 or 4 people who are supporting them across all those domains of their life. And what happens then is that if there's an improvement in their mental health, or there's an improvement in their substance use, or there's improvement in their housing, we can consolidate those improvements because the team is collaborating. So I would maintain that collaboration leads to consolidation. It's like, Mark, if Julio's your coach for the big walk and he's putting a lot of energy in and you're doing no exercise, right? We're going nowhere. Or if you're all exercise but you haven't got good guidance about that from your coach, then you're going to struggle. Two things happen together, then that collaboration leads to consolidation. It's like that with people as improvements. So what we
hope... think your service was so someone like Julio that's struggling to do what he needs to do in life, I can send him down to your centre and he'll become a better coach for me.
Look, it's not impossible, Mark. I mean, a lot of what we do is actually about really, really listening to people. I mean, if we do anything well, it's listening. The opening refrain is usually, "G'day, Julio, how can we help?" And we'll just listen. And when you do that and you listen without judgment and you listen deeply and for a long period of time, it's the first step to helping people establish what their life goals are. So when someone walks in the front door with us, we're not like, "Oh, you're using drugs, stop using drugs," or even use less drugs. We're usually like, "What's going on for you? What can we help with?" And that approach generally is good for probably absolutely any situation in the world, including your kids. Like if your kids, you think they're doing excessive screen time, as opposed to barking at them yet again, maybe say, "Hey, look, it worries me a bit to see you on your phone so much.
Yeah,
Can we just have a conversation about, what you're getting out of it? I'm going to try to not boss you around. These kind of things. You've a problem with your neighbour. Your neighbour keeps doing something crazy. It's a great start just to say, "Hey, buddy, what's going on for you?" And that's essentially, I think, the fundamental approach at first step, plus the collaboration of the multiple disciplines.
It's pretty amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
It always starts with the conversation, isn't it? And the way you approach the direct, the first question, and then how that continues on.
Absolutely. Like any good conversation, it's all about trust. So if you go in there, acting like you know what's wrong with this person and you can fix them, I tell you what, with this mob, and they're usually pretty cynical mob, and they've been involved in a lot of circumstances where the system has let them down. And by mob, I don't mean Indigenous people, but we do have a disproportionate number of Indigenous clients as well. Then they're going to be like, they're going to smell the bullshit a mile away and not really open up and not trust you and not come back. So, we often say versions of this expression that we're in the welcoming business.
Wow.
And welcoming is usually actually about listening.
So, Patrick, if someone's listening tonight and they're struggling a bit with their mental health, or their drug issues or any other life issue, what would you say to them tonight? They're listening to this. They've sort of been a bit triggered by what you've said. What would your advice be to them and, any listener that might be struggling a bit tonight?
Generic advice, I don't mean that in a bad way, about mental health. I think probably one thing I would say is this, it's very clear the two best things you can do, right? This is documented by a lot of evidence. And one is talk to someone. That's one of them. And that someone might be your partner, it might be a professional, it might be a friend. If you're not talking to anyone about what's going on in your life and there's bad things going on in your life, then do talk to someone. Yeah. Anyone. And that someone maybe that someone might end up being a professional. And there is something magic about just saying stuff out loud. It's kind of like having a good cry. You just feel better after. I don't know why. Every time I go and see, so I've got a supervisor, I see her once a month. And if I go into her and let's say my mental health is at a 3 out of 10, I'm going to walk out of there as a 6 out of 10. And if I go in as a 6 out of 10, I'm going to walk out of there as an 8 out of 10. And I think partly it's just the magic of opening my mouth. She's also fantastic. Shout out to Gabby. But talking is important. And the other thing is if they could bottle exercise and sell it as a drug, it would be more successful than any medication for mental health, with the possible exception of targeted drugs for things like schizophrenia.
Wow.
And the best kind of exercise, without any question, any shadow of a doubt, is the exercise you're going to continue. So don't think, and an exercise you're going to maybe continue for life. Like think, what do I do any exercise? I do absolutely nothing. Could I walk around the block once a night when I get home from work? Can I do that? Could I see myself doing that for the rest of my life? I'm guessing you probably could, or walk around the block. That's where you start. You don't start with a gym membership and a big gym routine and whatever else, or you're going to jog 5K a day. Not going to happen if you're starting at zero. Yeah.
Paul, is that one of your successes, mate? Your little secrets of success, playing your squash on a Thursday night?
Tuesday night, mate. Well, in actual fact, I'm stunned by that comment, Patrick, because I tell my wife and religiously, I've got to go out for a walk. I've got to go when I come home. I've got to go for a walk. I've got to put the music on, go and see what's going on and stuff like that. And she said, "No, that's nothing to do with your mental health. You just want to go out, get away and go for a walk." But the reality is, you go for a walk, go for a run. I love it. I love the air hitting my face. I love just that time by myself, reflecting on the day, or how many times Mark's told me to do this or do that, whatever. But no, it's not that bad. But you know what I mean? Like just getting away and it's amazing. And then Tuesday nights squash with the boys, and it's just like, it's really important for me.
And the squash with the boys is as much about the social interaction, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
Both those
Absolutely.
things.
You know?
And they're both, and that's, I mean, when we say talking to people, also just that social interaction. You've got a friend you haven't been in touch with for a while. For God's sake, don't send them another text. Call them up.
Call them up. Okay. No, that's really important. Yeah.
What about you, Julio? What helps you, mate? Is exercise or?
Yeah, I'm a true believer that you need exercise for two reasons, not just for the health, as in getting out and moving the body and keeping your muscles moving, but also for it's a good time to actually think. Your brain seems to work better once you start moving and exercising. So for me, it's a good time where you reflect on today, what happened in the day. Also, good time to talk. A bit struggling and a bit of a more of an effort when you got Mark involved, but because you have to encourage him to the next 5 meters at most of the time. So, but yeah,
absolutely.
But that's my thing.
I think we'll need to talk to Patrick to support Mark and have a chat. Welcome him. But we're chatting with Patrick Lawrence here at 98.9 Northwest FM, Paul Mark and the Tech Guy Show. Hey, don't forget to jump onto our Facebook page and see us at Paul Mark and the Tech Guy. It's the following group has really improved. Really excited about that. They're coming up at the traditional top 7 at 7. I've actually got the top 6, and I'm going to ask Patrick to support me on this one because he sent through a link today. We're talking about some health challenges. We're talking about mental health, but tonight's the nation's health check. We're going to run through what I've taken on some of the stats from a report from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. I'd love you guys to interject as well tonight. And I was blown away by the stats. So I thought, tonight's 6 points is really interesting if we share this with our audience. Is it interesting, Mark? So, Mark, how do you feel? I mean, we've only just talked about this for about a minute. How are you feeling about the Larapinta? I mean, are you going to go home tonight and put on your runners and go?
Well, look, it's a good point, and I did want to talk to Patrick about some insights that he gave. But Julio, it'd be good to hear from our listeners. If anyone's listening, I want to ask Patrick a question because there's still questions I want to ask him about first step. But Patrick, we should let people know that you have virtually done a beginner's book of record activity when you shot basketball hoops. Virtually, I don't know how long you did it for, but it was a world record. Tell us a bit about that and how you prepared yourself, because you might give me some tips on how I'm going to prepare myself for the Larapinta.
Okay. It's different. Oh, no, well, I mean, they're both endurance things, I suppose. Yeah, well, I'm not sure what the tips are going to be, but I'll just
put up, mate. I mean, you did an amazing thing. It was all night.
Yeah. So you recall, Mark, that this was sort of a group fundraising thing. It was during COVID, and we had a couple of different organisations. I think we called it Rock Around the World, didn't we? That was the name.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was raising money for First Step specifically, and I latched onto this idea that so there is a world record for the highest. I've been playing basketball all my life, and I love the game. And there is a world record for the highest number of free throws, successful free throws or foul shots, as we also call them, made in a 24-hour period. This American guy, and he's got a team of people rebounding him. They just feed him a ball, and he just sits there. Bang, another ball goes bang like that, and the record's like 9,000 something. It's insane, and he hits 95% of them, probably maybe more. And I thought, well, the COVID version of that would be you shoot the foul shot, you go and get your own rebound, you come back to the foul line, you shoot another foul shot because you're not allowed in a room with anyone. So I should point out that there is no documented world record for the highest number of free throws in a day, in a 24-hour period, getting your own rebounds. So I thought to myself, what's a number that no one would possibly have done by accident? So I can probably reasonably say that I've actually maybe done the most in the world. It's quite possible. So the number I picked for myself, I did a bit of maths, was 3,000.
No way. In a day?
I had 3,000 in a day. At local primary school, Newport Lakes Primary School, thanks, David, the principal, said I could use the school gym. And I got in there and I started at about 3 a.m. I'd had a bit of sleep. But then I woke up sort of full of tension, I think, and went into the gym. And by 1 o'clock the next morning, I'd made my 3,000.
Well,
And I suppose what was crucial there was that I acclimatized myself to what it's like to shoot for 2 hours and then have a break. And basically, I couldn't, I never did 24 hours of shooting in preparation. I did bite-sized bits, and I only did it because I have a basketball ring in the backyard. It's on grass and everything, but same kind of idea. And the thing about the practice was that I enjoyed the practice. I actually loved getting out there, had a really good excuse to not parent for 30 minutes or sometimes 60 minutes as I was getting closer to the event. And it was the actual practice that I enjoyed. So my biggest recommendation for anyone in that kind of situation would be try to generate a training regime that you actually enjoy. I can imagine for you it might involve working out what your 10 favorite podcasts are. And so you're not just, heading out the front door to walk X Ks or walk for X period of time. You're walking out to do that and, catch up on what's happening in UK politics, I believe.
All right. Well, from your doing this amazing thing that you did, what would be your number one tip for me as I'm going to take on my biggest physical challenge ever? And I've got my coaches, can't find him. So what would you tell me to do?
Well, without knowing much about building up to endurance events, I would probably say do something every day. But you are going to have some aspect that's building up to your endurance as well. So I don't think a day should go past where you don't at least get out and do 15 minutes, stretch your legs. But I'm guessing, and you'll probably get some very good advice off the internet as well, that you're going to need to build yourself up to a 1 hour walk on a Saturday, and maybe the week after that you might be building up to a 2 hour walk. But I would just say try and make it as fun as humanly possible.
Oh, that sounds good. And Gloria's got some good ideas. Oh, there we are. That's me.
There you go. There he is. Flagged out already.
What's Gloria got to say there, Julio?
So, yeah, Gloria, fresh air combined with extra endorphins is always a good mental health.
Yeah, that is always great for your mental health. Absolutely. And it's well documented. It's fun. Not fun like, say having a party, but it's a fundamentally enjoyable thing to do.
Now, Patrick, we're going to go to a break in a second, but before we do, and I hand back to Paul, just the demand out there at the moment. I mean, you struggling for customers down there first step, or what's going on?
Yeah, well, we have never been able to meet demand in the past, and COVID. I'll tell you a funny story. Back during the first lockdown, we always stayed open, and we needed to see some people face to face. So we did that. And one of our clients said, "I'm stuck at home with nothing to do, and everyone looks at me like I'm contagious. What's changed?" We all had to have a bit of a laugh at that. It was, she was talking about her regular life on lockdown weren't really all that different because she was socially ostracized, but I didn't get much of a laugh out of any of you guys with that one. But at the time it was very dark humor. Yeah. But I think the main change I would say that we've witnessed, I hear my staff talk about, probably actually relates to cost of living. And we're finding that, the vast majority of our clients were unemployed, and now we have people experiencing similar stresses and stresses that are triggering, earlier parts of their life. They're needing a higher level of mental health support, who are working but can't pay the bills. That's a definite change that we've experienced in the last couple of years. So what we might call, it's a very generic term, but we might call the working poor, and the stresses on the working poor seem to have increased materially of late. It's something we actually thought was going to happen, and it did.
Okay. All right. Well, look, we'll be back with Patrick, Lawrence, Mark, and the tech guy, and myself here on 98.9 Northwest FM. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back for the top 6 around 7, and we're going to break down the nation's health checks. Also, don't go away anywhere because we're still here till 8 o'clock. We've got Mark's rant, which is pretty powerful. Last week he was knocking, a 10-pin bowling ball 10 pins over, And we've got always something fabulous coming up with Julio, the Talking Tech with the tech guys. So don't go anywhere. We're talking footy on Facebook. So if you want to jump onto our Facebook page, Northwest FM 98.9 and Community Heart, check it out because the boys are going to talk a little bit about football while we take a break here at 98.9. See you shortly.
Well, there you go, eh? And Julio, I know you don't want to talk any footy because you vote for the Tigers. And, mate, I don't know what happened to those Tigers, Julio, but they've gone downhill, don't you reckon?
They have. They've certainly started pushing back at the moment. So we're going to have a look at a few events, maybe, just to have a look at what's going on with the AFL ladder. Maybe to start with that. Shall we go for that?
Yeah. And your internet seems to be a bit funny tonight, mate, but that's all right.
Okay.
Oh, mate, that's a bit small.
Okay, so I'll try to bring it up if I can.
But you can see the Bombers are still there. Patrick, who do you barrack for, mate? While we just talk a bit of footy.
You must have blocked this out, but Collingwood.
Oh, you're joking.
Yeah,
I don't know how we've done the footy thing just before we're playing the Pies on Friday night. Very worried about that game. And we've got Tina talks about Julio. We've got Tina here. She's going go Blues. So we've got a Blues supporter there.
There you go. Yes.
And the Blues are still pretty there, second on the ladder. So I think the premiership is at the moment between the Swans and the Blues. And Patrick probably wants to put a case for the Pies as the top three. But I must admit, I'm a bit worried about the Bombers. They're sort of heading down the ladder, I think, not up the ladder. What do you think? What's your summary of the footy at the moment, Patrick?
Well, I'm a little bit of a fair weather fan, I must confess, with my sort of extensive basketball experience. But I'll make a one observation that it will surprise people. I think I'm the only Collingwood fan in the state of Victoria who was just sort of, I don't know, it's kind of nice to see the Blues doing okay after so long in the wilderness. You know, growing up as a kid, it was such a fierce rivalry. Carlton-Collingwood certainly Essendon was in there as well. And later on, Essendon had a great period of success. But I kind of, I got a few very good mates who go for the Blues. And I'm like, oh, it's nice to see them make finals and do a bit of damage there. But I certainly am backing the Pies to come home with a wet sail. Reigning premiers, terrible start to the season. They're getting their heads right. They're seeing big sticks, doing big kicks. Go Pies.
Good night. Well, they're going to be starting favourites on Friday night at the MCG, but let's hope. I'm just really hoping that Essendon's going to prove everyone wrong, and we're going to come from nowhere, and we're going to win Friday night. Julio, what's your comments about the footy at the moment? I mean, I don't know whether you're looking at it, given Richmond is battling for the wooden spoon, but any comments there from you?
Oh, no, I was reckon at the moment we're out. So we're basically, we're just struggling to make sure that we're stay on 17 at the moment. So that's as far as I'll go with the footy at the moment. But on your demographics for you, you basically are going fairly well apart from this weekend with Geelong, which was an upset in the case of the footy where you are and the way you play the game. So we have to you probably have to more analyze what's going on with Essendon. Is it your team or is it the amount of injuries you have?
Unfortunately, I think we're heading down because you have a look at this, and it's great that Tina's got Pete and I are listening. That's great. Great to have some listeners there tonight, and welcome aboard. But if you have a look at that, Julio, Essendon's got Collingwood, and then we've got Melbourne. So that could be two defeats, and so I'm a bit worried about the Bombers.
Don't be like that, mate. Don't be like that. It's
a bit pessimistic, A bit pessimistic.
Two opportunities for the Bombers to prove their mettle.
Yes.
That's what it's all about.
Well, I happen to be going on Friday night, so really hoping that they're going to win. Now, we'll just do a little mid-season premiership predictor. So, Julio, who do you think is going to win the grand final?
This year?
Yep.
We're pretty much, at the moment, I'm still staying with my original prediction. So,
what's that?
The Sydney.
Sydney, okay. What about you, Patrick? Who do you think is going to win the grand final in 2024?
So I'll pick Collingwood to come home with a wet sail and lose in dramatic fashion to the Blues. Carlton-Collingwood grand final. How would that be?
Oh, there
That
you go.
would be massive, massive, massive. And they'd probably even pay the Swans to have that grand final. But I think it's going to be a Carlton-Sydney Swans grand final with the Swans coming home with the goodies. So that's what I'm thinking. So, but what about anyone listening? Got any ideas who they think's going to win the grand final? Pop that in the chat. Be great to hear from you tonight. And we're going back to Paul in a few seconds there. But So Patrick, do you actually go to the footy at all, mate, or you mainly a basketball man?
I usually get to a couple of games a year, but I'll tell you very quickly, Mark, I have a very ambitious plan. Two of my kids play in something called the Hyde Street Youth Band based in the western suburbs, and I am working very hard to have Hyde Street Youth Band on the MCG next Anzac Day playing the national anthems of New Zealand and Australia, backing their singers for the big game at the G, the big Anzac Day. But they usually do it with a recording. I'm like, recording, get a live band, get a band of kids from the western suburbs. So if you've got any special contacts at Essendon, mate, you know.
Well, that sounds good. We'll have to try that. Tina is saying that Pete goes for the Swans and the Blues for her. So that's just a little prediction there. So thank you, Tina, for that. Back to you, Paul, in the studio. Great to have you there in the studio. Because who do you think is going to win the grand final, Paul?
Oh, don't start me, mate. Don't start me. Well, look, I mean, I didn't listen to what you guys were saying. So, but looking at the ladder, it's looking pretty good. Swans, Carlton, there could be a playoff there. Who knows? I don't think Essendon's got a chance. They're certainly going to be probably bottom 8 or not maybe tipped over the end. Who do you go for, Robert? Patrick? Who do you go for?
I'm a Pies man, but I take it all with a bit of a grain of salt. I'm not going to, lose Manana over 18 young blokes kicking a bit of pigskin around who I've never met before. But that's just me.
That's just you.
All right, we've got Milton Wilds actually. Now I don't know whether you know about this, Paul, but the old Grilled are giving out burgers, and looks like he's keen about the burgers from Grilled. He's got Hawthorn or Geelong win, and he gets the burger. Can you believe that, Julio?
No, that's basically Milton, I think, in a nutshell.
No.
So
Burgers.
Well, it's interesting how everyone's jumping on the comments on the footy segment whilst we're playing some music here at 98.
That's it.
It's all good, and of course, it's always great fun to include our guest here, Patrick Lawrence, from First Step. And hey, we've got lots coming up. Thanks, Milton, for your feedback, and everyone else for commenting. It's always great if you continue to comment. We've got about another 16 minutes before the show ends. Hope you're enjoying us here on the program and also on Facebook land. Paul, Mark, and the Tech Guy Facebook page. Don't forget to follow us because it's important that we can start streaming it there. 100 followers we need before they'll give us the green light to stream. So push, and get behind us. All right, stay tuned for, can we go next to the top 7 around 7? I've got 6 points with Patrick Lawrence coming up very shortly. Patrick, I'd love to encourage our listeners on 98.9 to jump onto the Facebook page and check that out because that's an interesting slide. But look, thank you so much for sending through this link. Maybe you could frame it up for us. But the link from the commentary, I think it's called the commentary, the latest biennial report from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare blew me away today. Absolutely blew me away. So I thought, well, how do I frame up top 7 points around 7 when there's so much interesting data or statistical data that's out there? We're talking about Nathan's health check and your first steps behind this sort of thing. So maybe just a quick frame around this document, and then we can go into the 6 points that I've brought in.
Sure, and this is an example of what good news outlets are doing, as opposed to just giving us reams of data. And when you haven't got a comparison, they say mental illness has increased by 5,000 people per. What is it? Is that a lot? How many more hospital admissions and ambulance ramping or whatever? This fabulous website gives you a whole lot of data. They break it down. It's based on the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare's Health of Our Nation most recent study. It's published by the good people at The Conversation. And we're looking at it now as Paul scrolls down, and we'll see that what they've done is they've represented Australia as essentially all Australians as 100 dots. And so what's our population? 27 million. So that means each dot is 270,000 people, if my maths is good enough for that.
Yes.
Basically, each dot is also 1%. And what probably is shocking to some and absolutely no surprise to others, but even I work in the mental health sector, and I was a bit surprised to find that the number one chronic illness in Australia is anxiety.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's a really high number. This particular bunch of numbers don't show us what the last survey was. I think they're annual surveys, but we all realise that is a high number. And even though it doesn't, I've seen some other analysis from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, and for the first time, I think it's the first time ever, that drug use disorder is actually the number one killer of Australians between the ages of 15 and 54 above cancer. Wow. Now, drug use disorder, I dug a little bit deeper, definitely includes cigarettes, so lung cancer, throat cancer, and even though the number of Australians smoking cigarettes has decreased, I think by about 90% in the last 20 years, it's still a leading killer. And alcohol and illicit drugs. But collectively, put those things together, and drug use disorder is the number one killer of Australians between the ages of 15 and 54. And the way I would frame that to people would be to explain that drug use is fundamentally a way of getting out of your own skin. So whether it's a quiet beer with dinner, just helps you relax a bit, helps you forget about your worries, or it's someone who's drinking 20 or 30 drinks a day, I can almost guarantee you their worries that they're trying to get away from are probably something to do with a traumatic childhood. And even with cigarettes, you might just think you're having a little puff. What's that got to do with your mental health? It's got everything to do with your mental health. And the worse people's mental health is, the more likely they're going to rely on a crutch in life, like alcohol, like cigarettes, like illicit drugs. So when we say that drug use disorder is the number one killer of Australians aged 15 to 54, you can pretty much say that poor mental health is the number one killer of Australians between the age of 15 and 54. Because when you know this stuff's killing you, like if you're doing enough of it to actually die, then you're not doing it because you're happy and life's good and everything's fine. You're doing it because you're miserable, but while you're intoxicated or inebriated, you don't notice how miserable you are. I've taken Mark's rant.
That's
They're 30%, 34% are overweight. That's an interesting one there, Paul.
It is very interesting. I think 61% of people living with a chronic condition, 38% of that, and 40 more chronic conditions. And you think, why so many? Why so many of us? What are we not doing? That's not right. But so you touched on, Patrick, number one, the chronic condition is anxiety. Back problem number two, 4 million people, 15.7%. Depression being number three, 3.2 million people at 12.4%. Asthma. Well, where does asthma come from? How did that fit into the, your top five? 2.8 million people, 10.8%, and then in deafness and hearing loss, which is a chronic condition, 2.4 million. I mean, they're just outstanding numbers. Like, they're just crazy, absolutely crazy.
I'm inclined to think that two of them, being back problems and deafness, probably have a close age correlation. I mean, I had a bad back when I was 15, so I'm not trying to generalize too much, and I'm not the expert. But asthma being right up there, that is a surprise, isn't it? And in some countries, if this survey was being done in India or China, I'd probably point to air quality. But I'm inclined to think that Australia's air quality is fairly good. But geez, that's a high number.
And the other thing is, many of us have got multiple things there. Like I probably can be considered a little bit overweight, Julio, and I've got a bad back. Have you fixed your back, Patrick? But I've certainly can tick those 2 boxes.
I think it was a sort of, often with growing teenage boys, your back can go a bit awry, and mine. Sure. I think actually stopping practicing the piano 7 or 8 hours a day was very good for my back. Stopping that, do tend to sort of crouch and lean over a bit. I don't know, but back's not a problem at the moment. But give it another 10 years, it'll probably creep back in.
So basketball would have helped you sort of, firm up or strengthen the core for you, Patrick, yeah?
Yeah, I hope so. I'd like to think so. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So number 3, First Nations people, the 5 most chronic conditions, it's a little bit different to the overall national picture. If we just quickly touch on them. So 2018, 2019 were eye and sight problems, 38%, followed by asthma, which is obviously number 2, hearing, ear and hearing problems, number 3, back problems, number 4, and arthritis, number 5. So I thought it just, again, very different and interesting. I wonder why it's like that, so different.
There's a really easy explanation, Paul, and that is the 2 conditions on that list that don't appear for the rest of Australians are conditions of poverty and abject poverty. There are even cases of leprosy in some parts of Australia. Leprosy has made a comeback. I don't know a lot about it, but I know that it's a disease of poverty. That's a pure and simple explanation. The eyesight and hearing, also kidney issues and liver failure are sure not far down the list. They can be related also to drug and alcohol use, but eyesight.
Yeah, wow.
This is like Fred Hollow's doing work in Papua New Guinea, right? Only it's Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Crazy. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. What, Mark, your thoughts on that?
Well, I just wonder. I think the exercise again and the mental health can actually help you with all the other health conditions, because that's what really can get you down. Is if you're feeling really low about all the challenges you've got, that makes it even worse, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So in 2022, about 45% of children aged between 0 and 14 had at least one chronic condition, so young. The most common was hay fever, followed by asthma. So again, sort of obviously health-related challenges. In 2022, 2022, an estimated 8.5 million Australians aged 16 to 85 had experienced a mental disorder. I think this is alarming. At the same time of their life, 43% of the population have experienced a mental disorder, Patrick. That's just
so that's almost most of us, right? That's as good as half the population at some point in their adult life. And obviously with mental health, there's a line between, stressed out, not very well, there's no line, in fact, between stressed out, not very happy, not feeling like the family's in a very good state, not enjoying your job. And then there's this sort of very grey area into what a mental health clinician would consider to be anxiety or depression. So I would recommend, if people are interested in this topic, I'd strongly recommend a book by a wonderful author and friend of First Step, Johan Hari. A lot of people have heard of Johan. He's very popular in Australia. Last name is spelled Hari. He's written a book called Lost Connections, which is essentially a Mark Watt-like rant against mental health medications that he was on for a very, very long time. Now, he's not telling anyone, just drop your meds. What he is saying is look at your life or the lives of others and see what's missing. And the lost connections, I can't remember, or I'm pretty sure there's 12 of them. Certainly some of them are lost connection to family, lost connection to nature. Here's one of my favorites, lost connection to meaningful employment.
Wow.
So if you're spending 40 hours a day doing something that you don't see as benefiting humanity or being meaningful. There's a lot of ways we can define that word. Most of mental health really is about something that is missing from your life. Now, that doesn't necessarily make it easier to fix. And you probably got a lot of listeners out there that might vehemently disagree with me and might say, no, it's mental health's organic. Addiction is, a brain condition. And we can agree on one thing, which is that if there's problems in your life, it's going to make it worse. It may not be the origin of everything that's wrong, but if there are things that you can change about your life, then try and change them. And that, again, we come back to exercise and talking to people, because we can all do that. With very rare exceptions, we can all do that. It's hard to change where you live. It's hard to change your job. It's practically impossible to change your family without extraordinary disruption and probably more misery. What are the levers that are actually available to you? Pull on them if you're not happy with how your life is at the moment, and to avoid going from being pretty grumpy into what we might call clinical depression.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Thanks, Patrick, for contributing there as well. Mark, I think it's time. We've talked about Mark's rant. Well, why don't we get right into it, Julia? Here he is. I'm sure you got a big rant tonight.
Yes.
Okay, well, look, I think tonight, guys, I know what the problem is out there in the world, and I tell you what, I'm surprised it wasn't in the stats. It'd probably be up to 90% the problem, and the problem is blokes like you, Julio, that think that tech is the answer, where tech is killing us. Tech is making us frustrated. Tech is making us feel inferior. Tech is having all this unbelievable impact on our young people, on our adults, and it's just destroying the community. So I would say the tech guys think they're smart, but they're not that smart, because they're creating all these problems. And I'll tell you what, Patrick, you'd probably relate to me, but I changed my phone over on the weekend and I got frustrated. I got feeling isolated. I was feeling hopeless. I was really down. I even rang Julio, spent an hour on the phone with him, and I felt worse. He couldn't solve my problems. I couldn't find anyone to solve my problems, just because of the tech. Now, I reckon if tech people are smart, they should make tech so it's easy to use and there's no issue. I mean, there's things called authenticators. I mean, what is an authenticator? There's other things that are going on the phone. I can't do my banking anymore. I can't do this. I can't do that. And you and I have experienced emails that don't seem to work. I mean, it's just there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on we've got no idea about. And so tech is causing these issues. Young people, they think they're smart. They know all this technical stuff. And us older blokes feel inferior to them. And yet they're spending all their time on tech. No one can talk to each other. Patrick, don't you agree with me that tech is 90% of the world's problems?
I do, Mark. I don't know if I'd put it 90%, but if I could receive 90% fewer emails, I'd be a happier person.
Yes. No, Mark, I know what Mark feels like. He's showing me an image of his brain, what he feels like. So that's Mark's world at the moment. So here we go.
That's about right.
Well, Tina says I should turn my phone off and go down to the old school banking. And that's probably what we've lost, Patrick. There's no more interaction, you know. We can't go to the bank. We're using our phone, and our phone makes us approve things. You got to go through these apps which don't work. Authenticators, Paul. Have you ever heard of an authenticator? I mean, authenticating. The only thing it's authenticating is stopping me from using it.
Yeah, correct. Exactly. Well, you know, one of our sites went down today for about 15 minutes with no FPOS, you know, because it just went down. You know what I mean? So it becomes a challenge financially for us. You know, we lose sales. You know, we're throwing product out because we can't sell it. You know, so all sorts of stuff. But how good is tech? So we're hearing you, but authenticate. Oh, good luck with that, Marcus. But I think you found your way, yeah? You've come forward.
Eventually, I found my way. And you know why I found my way? I went back to the old thing that I knew. My old phone fixed my new phone. So there you go, Patrick. The old is good for the new.
There you go. Works together, hand in hand, huh?
Yeah.
All about it.
That's it. That's Mark's rant for tonight on the show. Paul Marketing Tech Guy. Well done. Whee! All right.
Yeah.
Okay, we're coming up to
sorry, just to say that Tina's right. Social media, and Patrick, just make a quick comment on that. Social media is causing mental health issues, isn't it, in our young people and anyone really?
How long have I got?
2 seconds.
Overuse of social media is definitely a major problem, and it is pretty addictive. It's pretty hard not to just do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So one is inclined to overuse. It's a danger to start with, and it's very hard to not do too much of. It's not all bad by any means, but there's a lot more to life than staring at a screen and having that kind of social life.
Yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Paul.
Good on you, Mark. And well done. Thank you, Patrick. All right, here we are talking tech with the tech guy as we come to the end of the show here on Paul Marketing Tech Guy. Go for it, Tech Man.
Perfect. Okay, moving in with Mark and his little rant about tech. We're moving into the Tech Man show. So the only thing today I have was basically what we use here at the show very often, which is basically the good old headphones. So I believe at the moment that these are a really good device for, especially for mental health or anything, for just getting yourself to listen to music, slow down a bit, and have something in line to move along with your normal day and normal life requirements. The issue that we're having at the moment with this is that the actual headphones, everybody's starting to go into the plug-in earphone thing, which is great, but the noise cancellation is causing a lot of havoc in between with traffic use and also with people in the streets at the moment and cyclists. The new way of viewing things now is these wraparound units that actually don't sit in your ear, but use your head as an instrument to create sound, which is a great difference in using this particular system, especially when you're riding a bike or going training and running, so you can actually be more aware of your environment. So I hope that was a good insight about what we should be moving forward to. So that is for me.
Good on you, Tech Guy. That's awesome. It's always
the new world order, Mark. New world order.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Hey,
Julio, I have used that system, a system like that before. I can't remember the brand, and while it worked, it was great. I really liked it for a few months, and you're meant to be able to, use it on the bike and everything else, and it's a lot safer. And it was until Mark, it just mysteriously stopped working properly, and it never worked.
20% of the issues, mate.
It got my expectations right up.
Well, that's it. No, well, it's not going to be perfect, right? So we just got to keep talking about it and getting some advice and some support from our fellow mates. All right, Marcus, what's up for the week ahead? What's up for next week?
Well, we've got a big training session on Saturday with Julio Valencia, and we're going to walk about 12 Ks up some hills. I'm just going to do a little bit of test run and see how we go. I've got to check the diet, and I'm going to stay away from tech. That's me.
Stay away from tech. Awesome. Patrick, thank you so much for being on our show this evening, being a guest. Patrick, first step, what would you just like to frame up, I guess, the last sort of couple of sentences or maybe your last thoughts for our listeners?
We think that this kind of whole person care is really a fantastic model for the whole country, for people with co-occurring needs. If you're interested to learn more about it, we're all over the socials, our website, www.firststep.org.au. Yes, we've got program in the Facebook page because that sort of used to be our name, but that is us and that is us as well. Read a bit, and you can get a monthly blog from me too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Patrick. Thank you so much for taking your time out this evening. We've enjoyed it, and there's so much in depth there. But yeah, please connect with First Step. Marcus, we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Julio, always a wonderful sesh, mate. Keep up the great work, and don't forget to train the great man for Lara Pinder. All right.
I'm all ready for him.
That'll work.
That'll work. Fantastic. So don't go anywhere because they're here on 98.9. We've got lots more coming up. Music on the hour and programming. Thanks, guys. We'll see you next time. Thanks to all of our comments from our Facebook world. We really enjoy you guys commenting and being part of it. See you next week here in Paul Mark and the Tech Guy here in 98.9 Northwest FM.